Hello everybody! This is tRUEcrime podcast from the Hybrid Warfare Analytical Group at Ukraine Crisis Media Center, where we take on Russian propaganda and discuss hybrid threats and influence tools they use. Today, we will discuss how Russia exploits cybersport and video games to spread propaganda and gain benefits in the international arena. Also, we want to underline how Moscow uses the Russian club's victories to empower its own authority. Why is it important now? The largest international Dota 2 Esports tournament ended on October 29th, with the Team Spirit winning. The organization is officially based in Serbia, but is Russian. This is the second victory of the Russian team in this tournament. The last time it celebrated a triumph was in 2021. Interestingly, the results of the current competition were covered not only by esports media, but also by audience characters of Russian agitprop. For example, Vladimir Salda, a collaborator and governor of the temporarily occupied districts of the Kherson region, highlighted the victory as follows.
Your cohesion, professionalism, and will to win left behind our rivals, confirming the status of the Russian esports school as one of the strongest in the world.
The Russian Federation's attempt to use the game industry as a propaganda tool for the continuation of humanitarian expansion have been going on for many years. Our team has already covered how the Russians in the Atomic Heart game justify their aggression and imperialism through Soviet and other propaganda imagery. The Ukrainian authorities, represented by Deputy Minister of Digital Transformation Oleksandr Batnyakov, called on international companies to limit access to this game. However, the company that distributed the game did not respond to the request, which may be related to the neutral position of the developers in the war that their country has unleashed.
We call for restrictions on the distribution of this game in other countries due to its toxicity, the potential collection of user data, and the possibility of its transfer to third parties in Russia, as well as the potential use of money raised from the purchase of the game to wage war against Ukraine.
Video games as a tool of propaganda. Esports have gained enormous popularity worldwide. The digital entertainment industry audience is growing every year, especially with the rise in popularity in Asia and Latin America. For example, the video game market in the world in 2022 was $217 billion. The total number of gamers in Ukraine, according to the estimates of the operations director of the Ukrainian Esports Association in 2020, was more than 5 million. That is, a tenth of the country's population. At the same time, in 2016, the Belarusian company Wargaming, developer of World of Tanks, stated that it evaluated the Ukrainian game market to have 14 million people. The Russian video game market varied from 30 to 74 million users. Naturally, the ideologists of the Putin regime paid attention to the potential of esports as a platform for spreading propaganda. The global reach of esports and the massive base of players give the Russian Federation the opportunity to extend its narratives to a broad audience, first by sponsoring teams, organizing tournaments, and promoting Russian players. At a large extent, Moscow's use of esports to enhance its prestige is similar to classical sports. Significantly, the Russian Federation politicians perceive Russian clubs' victories as media events worthy of maximum coverage. The New York Times published a large article about this situation. Joseph Brown, an associate professor at Thompson Rivers University in British Columbia, was very aptly quoted.
They need to get everybody back on board with the war. It's another piece of this whole puzzle of constant propaganda all the time. In every single medium they can get to you with, they will get to you.
Video games have a unique ability to influence public opinion. Thanks to its interactive nature, developers can create alternative realities that allow them to manipulate facts however they want. In one way or another, the Kremlin wants to take an example from China, which is implementing a policy on developing computer games and esports at the state level. For illustration, at a meeting of the Supervisory Board of autonomous non-commercial organization Russia, the Country of Opportunities, established by the President of the Russian Federation himself, Vladimir Putin said,
"Video games should be at the intersection of art and education. The game should help a person develop, help him find himself. It should help educate a person within the framework of universal human values and the framework of patriotism, in the good sense of the word."
It is easy to guess that somewhere between those universal values and proper patriotism, the imperialist militant rhetoric of the Russian regime will be able to sneak in. However, even if Moscow does not interfere in the computer industry's activities, the Russian Federation's gaming community will indirectly continue to spread certain propaganda narratives. Sports from the entertainment industry. It is essential to understand that esports has several vital characteristics distinguishing it from classic sports. One of the most important is that each video game has its own specific owner in the form of the development company, with the exclusive right to influence the tournaments derived from the games. The second significant difference is the lack of general accepted regulation and official recognition not in all countries. According to the famous esports commentator Vitaly Vilat-Valachai,
in many countries of the world, esports is recognized as an official sport. There are federations, official competitions. The problem is that esports is a field of entertainment. It is called a sport because of the closest proximity to the competitive element.
Therefore, the lack of regulations and dependence on companies for which video games are a business greatly complicates the way of counting Russian propaganda in esports. Many Russian clubs are closely associated with businesses willing to sponsor them due to their large audience reach. For example, the champions of the largest Dota 2 tournament, with which we started this material, Team Spirit, are sponsored by Red Bull and the Singaporean chair manufacturer Secret Lab. The Virtus Pro team, which until recently was owned by VK, former Mail.ru, was among its partners not only Russian Yandex.Еда, Russian analog of Uber Eats, but also the Italian sportswear manufacturer Kappa. This organization was one of the few well-known Russian groups whose media presence was significantly limited after the full-scale invasion. However, most restrictions have been lifted after the recent sale to Armenian owners. The language of the game. An important attribute of the 1990s and the 0 years in Ukraine was internet cafes that allowed people to play games without their own PCs. At the same time, many small and not-so tournaments appeared in such competitive games as the shooter Counter-Strike and MOBA games Dota and Dota 2. According to Valachai, the specifics of how multiplayer games worked at that time played a crucial role.
Historically, a large part of the Ukrainian internet traffic was connected to the global network through large data servers in Moscow. As a result, Western publishers combined us with Russia into one technical region. It was unprofitable for game developers to enter the Ukrainian market and do Ukrainian localization because Ukrainians bought their product anyway.
In large tournaments, communication between team members plays a crucial role. Therefore, teams from the post-Soviet space often have to play while communicating in Russian. For many players, this is a matter of convenience and habit. The esports community, which developed more actively in Ukraine than in the Russian Federation, remained in the cultural space of Moscow, which determined its further development. The connection of the Ukrainian and Russian internet networks, the seclusion of the publishers of most of the post-Soviet countries into one region, and the larger market of computer games in Russia greatly influenced the fact that the community of players remained Russian-speaking and very closely connected. Are you winning, Soren? Despite all the differences from classical sports, esports remained a potential tool for spreading Russian influence on the international player community. The departure from the Russian environment in domestic esports began after 2014 and intensified after February 24, 2022, but is still not enough to call the Ukrainian e-community resistant to Russian influences. This applies even more to the international community of players and fans. Ukraine needs to create a state policy on this issue because it is not only a large media market, but also, as some Ukrainian clubs like to say, reputational losses for the state. Before the Great War, Kyiv was a popular space for holding world championships, but Ukrainian companies could not independently restore their status. The Ministry of Youth and Sports of Ukraine should be interested in such activities because this is a layer of investments that can be attractive and indirectly affect interest in classic sports.